get on BookTube anymore, but naturally I got on BookTube randomly one day and was like, oh fuck, it's time to do my mid-year book freakout tag. So that's what we're doing today. I hope you are excited. So question number 1 is best book you've read so far this year, as if you don't know exactly how this tag is gonna go. If you, well, you wouldn't know because I'm not really posting on social media right now, but 1,500 Miles from the Sun is hands down the best book I've read so far this year. It follows our main character, Julian, and he lives in Texas, and he is gay. He is in the closet because his dad is very, I would say, like, he kind of like describes it in the book, like very stereotypical macho Mexican man. He is very like about family and about what it means to be a man and taking care of the people that you love. And he kind of has an inclination that Julian is gay, but he doesn't want to address it. And so you get to kind of experience Julian kind of coming out of the closet. And I love the addition of like Twitter in this. Like he does have like a separate Twitter account that he kind of like reposts and talks about just like being gay and loving like the culture and the life and like, you know, social media and media in general. Like he talks a lot about, I can't remember what singer it is, but I think it's Ariana Grande, but he meets a boy named Matt, and Matt lives in California, and Julian's actually trying to go to a school in California, and they do start a long distance relationship. Well, one night Julian does get wasted with his friends and accidentally posts to the wrong Twitter account about him coming out, and it has photos of him and like family and friends, and everybody does follow that Twitter account, so he is outed. What I really liked about the story, because it's a very basic like romance kind of contemporary novel. It does take place in high school. They are graduating from high school, getting ready to go to college. But his friends, and his grandpa and his older sister, oh my God, you guys, this book was beautiful. It was very like heartfelt, and any of the like negative aspects that kind of happened in the book, like anything that traumatic happened or any of like the plot devices, like, you know, like the drama that happens in books, I thought it was done really well. Like it didn't seem like it was done for the sake of moving the book along. It felt like a story, like that the author was telling kind of about his own life. You can tell there was a lot of heart and soul that went into this book. Definitely hands down my favorite of the year. Oh, next question number 2 is best sequel you've read so far this year. And I don't even know if I've read a sequel this year. I guess I'll go with Fire Falling, Air Awakens #2 by Elise Kova. I've read this entire series this year, and it is unfortunately the only, I think, like actual sequel that I'm comfortable talking about that I've read. But I will say that this series was better than I thought it was going to be. It kind of lost me a little bit towards the end. I think that it just, I feel like it could have been a little bit shorter. It's like a 5-book series, but overall it was really interesting. It was really enjoyable. It follows our main character whose name I can't remember, but basically she is an airbender, and those kinds of people don't normally exist. And in the world that they live in, people who are able to do magic are really looked down upon because there was a bit of a rebellion with them, which is kind of a theme in books that I do really enjoy. You guys have heard me talk about other fantasy series that kind of have that in the story, but she is taken in by the other, I forget what they call them in this world, but the other like magic users. But the story is so much more than that. Like the story goes very, very in depth. It follows a very long time period from basically like her figuring out who she is to, I don't really want to spoil it, but a very cool ending. This is a YA series, which is kind of why a lot of it has gone like in and out of my brain, but I do know when I read it, I did really enjoy it. I inhaled the first 3 in like 2 days. So that does say something. Also, I really have fallen in love with Elise Kova and books that she's written. So that's really cool. I did discover a new author that is interesting to me. Oh, shush. Shush. So the next question is, new release you haven't read but you want to. For me, that'd be The Soulmate Equation by Christina Lauren. I actually did recently pick this up pretty much on release day, but the reason why I really, really want to read this is because this is actually about a company that is able to DNA match people together, and apparently you are supposed to be soulmates. But the people that they match in this book, I don't necessarily know like their compatibility, or I know there's like some kind of conflict. This is a book by an author who most of their books I do genuinely enjoy. So that's why this is really, really high on my list. They are an auto-buy author for me. I've had a lot of coffee. Jess, you need to slow the fuck down. but they are an auto-buy author for me. So pretty much anything that they release, I tend to purchase or borrow or figure out how in the world I can read it. So this is a book that is definitely new release and something that I want to read, but not necessarily something that I know entirely too much about, just that it is about DNA matching and finding people's soulmates. But either way, it sounds really interesting, and I have heard some good reviews, and it has a 4.14 rating on Goodreads right now, although we have learned that Goodreads doesn't mean anything. The next question on here is most anticipated release for the second half of the year. I don't really do new releases. I'm not one of those people that's ever on the up and up with that. So basically any book by an author that I love. Like if there's one coming out, I'm definitely going to read it. But honestly, there aren't a whole lot of those that I do have. I guess actually there is one. There's an author that I've recently discovered and fallen in love with, and it is Chloe Leese, and she has a series called The Bergman Brothers, and I do believe the 4th book comes out at the second half of this year, so I guess we'll go ahead and say that. The next question, number 5, is biggest disappointment, and this, you might want to get some coffee or something for, something to drink, a snack, because I'm gonna go in. Basically, I had removed myself from social media, and I tend to, because of the like personality type I am, if I see something, like I'm one of those people that wants to be informed, but also at the same time is severely frustrated and freaked out and gets overwhelmed when I can't really change anything. There's an author called named LJ Shen. I read a lot of her stuff this year. I have removed my ratings from Goodreads because I have found out a lot of shit about one Miss LJ Shen, and she's a giant trash can fire of a person. Obviously, I don't personally know her, but the things that I've seen, firsthand accounts of her bullying and harassment, whitewashing characters. I'm serious, you guys. Like, she has some shit to figure out about her life. I'm not gonna go too into it. It's definitely one of those things that I had to Google because I was reading and loving and reviewing her stuff this year because a lot of her stuff is pretty freaking good in my opinion, but I can't move past some of the things that she's done. And then further along, like right when I was reading one of her series, I started realizing that I'm not really a fan of like bully romance books because that is the genre that she writes in. It's a lot of smut and like romance, but some of it is bully. So like the characters are very dysfunctional, very violent. Like they bully their love interest, like to the point of like assault and violence and just, oh God, abuse like nobody's business. And some of that stuff that she's writing was really making me vastly uncomfortable. And then right after I finished that series, I had seen somebody post about LJ Shen on Instagram just very randomly and was like, what in the fuck? So I had to do a deep dive on Google. I don't know how she got rid of some of this shit, but you know, I found people on Instagram that were talking about it and just kind of educated myself on it, and I no longer support her. So I would definitely say that is the biggest disappointment to me, is that I found this author and started really enjoying some of her stuff, and then started reading a couple of her other series and was very disappointed that I apparently really don't like bully romances, and that's what everybody loves her for, and then found out that she was a trash can fire of a human. So like, what's the waste, really? I'm not missing out on anything, but I would say that is my biggest disappointment, is that I thought she was a good author by her writing and the books that she wrote, realized that she wasn't the author for me, and then found out that she was an awful person. So there's that. That's definitely my biggest disappointment of the year. Biggest surprise of the year would definitely be 1,500 Miles from the Sun, because this is a book, like I said, that I wasn't expecting to love, didn't know a whole lot about, went into, and fell in love with it. Like, I don't need to go over again why I loved it so much, but for sure, if you're looking for an LGBT romance contemporary, this book will have your heart. Kind of doing this by the seat of my pants, like I haven't really like thought about any of this. Favorite new author, debut or new to you? I will say Johnny Garza Villa, I don't know. I think that I'm gonna read anything that he writes, because this book was just so pure. 1500 Miles from the Sun was so pure, so happy, so sweet. The characters were funny. Like, I don't know, just like him being able to like breathe his culture into the book, and definitely like with a lot of heart. I'd be really interested to see like what else he ends up writing. Newest fictional crush. Oh, that I don't really have. I don't really crush over characters a whole lot anymore. I don't really know. I guess I would say The Bargainer, from the series by Laura Thalassa. It is the Bargainer series. Oh my God. Rhysand can go fuck himself, which is saying a lot, because you guys know Rhysand is like everybody's favorite. He's definitely my favorite. But The Bargainer, holy shit, it was so much better. I actually, you know what? That's probably, erase everything I said. That's definitely like my favorite series, my newest fictional crush, favorite book I've read, like new favorite author, favorite like series, like so good. I wanted to reread that series basically the second I stopped, like I finished it. It's about a girl who basically ends up killing her stepfather, and she calls on the Bargainer because her stepdad has, or her, I don't know if it's her dad or her stepdad, I think it's her dad, has his card, and he is basically someone who, he like lives in the shadows. He's like a fae, who comes to people and he will do something for you if you do something for him. But it's very highbrow like stuff, like it's very like, or not highbrow, but very like skeezy people. But she's really lonely. So after she calls him and he takes care of like hiding her dad's body, like she continues to call him and rack up all of these favors so that she can spend time with him, because she like, you know, kind of like ends up falling in love with him. But he's much older. That's the one thing about this book that was kind of like, is he's fae. He's incredibly old. He meets her when she's like 16. It is addressed in the book. He's like, hold on, you're a minor. I don't work with minors. Like, I don't want anything to do with you. But he just develops a friendship with her. Well, later on, when she is a full-grown adult, he shows back up and is like, hey, you know those beads that are on your wrist for favors that you owe me? Time to cash in on it. And that's what the series follows. Very cool, very sexy, very dark, very violent, very interesting, and definitely, I don't know what I was thinking not even mentioning that series up until this point. Newest favorite character, y'all, I need to talk about Callie. I don't know why, I can never remember her name. Callie is the main character from the Bargainer series. She's so, like, the trauma that this poor angel baby goes through at the beginning of the book, and then you get to see her turn into just this complete fucking badass. And we're not talking Sarah J. Maas style where it's like, oh, suddenly, you know, she handles a sword for 2 days and she's a badass. She can chop fucking Demogorgon's head off. Nothing like that. Her growth, like she does kind of experience that where she just becomes kind of a badass. She does have magical abilities, so that's a little bit different. She is a siren, which I think is so fucking cool. But also she is just like mentally what she goes through and the growth that comes from that and the person that she becomes, beautiful. I love her. Definitely one of my newest favorite characters, hands down. Book that made me cry. I don't know if any of these books that I've read this year has actually made me cry. I don't know. None of them. I don't know if it's my antidepressants that have kind of prevented me from crying, because I don't know if you guys know anything about antidepressants, but they really prevent you from feeling a whole lot. I guess I could say A Court of Silver Flames, so A Court of Thorns and Roses, number 4. This book kind of fucked me up. There are certain aspects of this book that I think really resonated with me, because there is a lot of trauma that Nesta goes through in the series and like her growth. But I think the part of this book, and I'm not really going to get into what it's about because it spoils a lot of the ACOTAR series if you haven't read it, but there is a part in this book where she befriends 2 other people, and the friendship, y'all, the friendship in this book fucked me up. Like the sex was fantastic. I love Cassian, so that was like good for me. But I will say that for me, having gone into this book fucking hating Nesta and coming out being like her biggest cheerleader, and I think that speaks to a lot of like trauma, that really resonated with me, and like her finding friends and stuff, beautiful. Now I will say as a caveat here, I know there's shit going on with Sarah J Maas when it comes to like just so much stuff that has been kind of piling up on her as an author and some of her past actions. I'm not really going to go into it because I'm not very well informed and haven't really had the mental capacity after all the LJ Shen shit to sit down and really dive into kind of what is going on that front. I will say that if you need more information, Google is a free resource. I'm not the resource for that because I haven't done the work yet, but I haven't really been talking about her online and have been kind of like avoiding discourse just until I am more well informed. But I know there is some stuff that's going on, so I'm a little bit hesitant to talk about this book, but I did enjoy it for those reasons, and I don't know, it did make me cry, so I couldn't not talk about it, I guess, because it is the only book that's really made me cry. Most beautiful book you've bought so far this year. I don't think that I've really purchased any books this year. If we're talking about like most beautiful books in like the sense of like most beautifully read, I'm currently reading What Happened to You by Bruce Perry and Oprah Winfrey, and that book is fucking me up, y'all. So it is beautiful in the sense of like it kind of makes you examine your life and forces a little bit of like growth, but I wouldn't say it's like the most beautiful cover I've ever read, so I'm gonna go ahead and cheat and say that. The last question we have here is, what books do you need to read by the end of the year? All 84 of them. You heard me right, 84 of them that are on my shelf that I haven't read. Out of all the books that I own, which isn't much anymore, 84 of those books I have not read, because most of what I purged when I moved into this apartment and before I put my books in storage really were books that I've read that I didn't really enjoy and didn't want to keep. So most of the books that you see behind me are books that I haven't read yet. So I'm going to go ahead and say literally any of them or all of the books that I am in the middle of reading, which is like 10 books that I haven't finished. Some of them I've been reading for like 4 months. And I just keep picking up different books to start instead. But that is going to be it for my mid-year book freakout tag. I hope you guys enjoyed it. The question that I want you guys to answer for me is, what book made you cry this year? Because I think we all need a bit of a release. Like, I will say that's my favorite part about reading, like, you know, kind of like heavier fantasy books or shit like that, is that it kind of forces a release out of people. If you have any recommendations like that down below of just really sad books, let me know. But that is going to be it for this video. If you guys did like it, please give it a thumbs up and think about subscribing. I love you so much, and I will see you in my next video.